Hello, welcome to this short video where I'm pleased to introduce our expert speaker, Will Wigmore, who's an independent technology consultant and board advisor. Will's going to talk today about going for gold in DevOps, which is why enterprise architecture must contribute to DevOps initiatives to make them successful. So without further ado, over to you, Will.
Thanks, Ben, and hello, everyone. As Ben said, my name is Will Wigmore. I'm a former CIO and global enterprise architect, and actually somewhere along that journey of my career, also a client of Mega as well. I work independently now, and I see quite a lot of different companies, ranging from global enterprises down to small, medium enterprises, and I advise on a variety of different topics, one of which is growing and maturing the enterprise architecture function. And I have a particular passion for improving and encouraging enterprise architecture teams to continuously evolve and be not just present and in attendance, but also to be influential in what they're doing inside their respective companies. And one of those particular topics that's, I think, very relevant and very topical is DevOps, and I want to just try to create a point of view and a catalyst to encourage enterprise architecture teams that aren't yet part and parcel of a DevOps initiative to be more proactive in taking that stance. So a little bit of context first of all. I mean, basically, the shift in enterprise IT over the last decade has been phenomenal. You know, from basically a position of taking care of a lot of the productivity and operational elements to being much more strategic and opportunistic, and moving from maintaining and delivering software packages and implementing software packages to being very much at the forefront of delivering digital capabilities. And during that time, we've seen software engineering methodologies grow and improve. We've seen the introduction of all sorts of different technologies that gives us advantages in terms of cloud native technologies. And of course, it introduces a number of different processes and cultures as well to the ways of working for in-house, for product engineering teams. And I think Agile and DevOps, which I personally believe go hand in hand and in a sequence as well. So with Agile going first and being a fundamental part of the critical path for success in digital capabilities, and DevOps being very much an overlay on top of that. And essentially, you know, what's happened is there's an expectation now that software engineering is much faster than it's ever been before. It's the results that it generates and the products it generates are much more predictable and reliable. And what's more, you know, the customer requirements change more frequently, and therefore we've got to make sure that the frequency of those kind of changes are going through much quicker as well. So basically the pace of change and the pressure is really mounting and continues to mount as well. So look, here's my hypothesis. DevOps is really about a shift in collaboration, and I think that collaboration shouldn't be restricted to just the development teams and just the service and operations teams. I think our enterprise architecture and every function within technology, and even some wider than the technology function, have got to be players in this game. And you know, why is that? Well, you know, the digital products, they're becoming critical to a business's success. In many cases, they're actually revenue generating. So if they're down, you are losing money. Your company is losing money. So they have to be well engineered and well architected. The capabilities are becoming much more transparent and familiar to senior executives, to stakeholders. So there's a lot more scrutiny about these software processes and the capabilities that support those processes. The idea of continuous improvement, of course, is a natural thing for both Agile and DevOps delegates, and I think that's that's not going to change. I think where you see that oftentimes in other parts of the business is a trigger for enterprise architecture to get involved. If a capability has got sponsorship, scrutiny, and is considered to be a differentiating capability, then often enterprise architecture is attracted to that kind of scenario. And I think this is no exception, okay? And that cultural change that comes along with DevOps, I think that cultural change is not just for the actors inside the DevOps team, it should also be for the wider community, including the EA team. So look, there's two things, I suppose, that the two messages here on this slide is one is the DevOps teams should be open-minded to this. They're great collaborators, and I think that if DevOps team can foster new and sometimes unexpected relationships in what they're doing, they'll go faster and they'll go better. So that's the kind of key message to the DevOps team. If we've got any DevOps practitioners listening in today, or people who are thinking about starting DevOps initiatives, so be open-minded to those partnerships beyond the obvious ones between development teams and operations. Now, to EAs, to enterprise architects, you've got to show that you can contribute, and I think that's part and parcel of today's hypothesis, is not just be a player, but how you can be a player as well. So here's a couple of thoughts. I think in terms of being a successful collaboration between EA and DevOps, well, you've got to show your cards. You've got to show what you can do and what you can offer and why it's a benefit to the DevOps team. Like any other business department that enterprise architecture are approaching, any other stakeholder group, you've got to show where you can add some value. And I think I've picked out three areas here where familiar areas, actually. These are not new or new science or anything like that. These are three familiar areas. The tool selection piece. There is an explosion of tools within the DevOps area, both in supporting the development teams and the engineering teams, testing, the security elements. There's an absolute explosion of tools, and I think the software market has responded very well to the level of interest and the money that's being thrown around in these areas. But of course, nothing stays, when you've got an explosion of tools, nothing stays the same for very long. So you've got to make sure that you're being very purposeful about your choices and that those choices are complementary to each other. So, and I'm talking about things like collaboration tools. Do you go with Slack, or do you go with Teams for communications? Do you go with something like Datadog for monitoring? And how do you do things like interdependency management between different platforms, for example? So there's lots of tool selection opportunities to get involved, and that's EA's real comfort zone and should be adding value into that area. The second one, again, is really something that a DevOps team or any part of the business should expect some help from their EA team when they're developing a technology roadmap. I'm particularly concerned here with making sure that the technology roadmap for DevOps identifies any points on critical path on the architecture runway, where there's a particular scaling up that's needed to meet a particular business outcome, or whether it's a security feature that needs to be available, or one of the other non-functional requirements to make a digital product or a digital platform a success. So you must make sure that you're helping the DevOps team to plan like they are a business function and delivering that architecture runway in the right sequence at the right time as well. And of course, again, there's product ownership that comes into this. and working, the EA team working with the product owners within the DevOps team for the tooling and for those technology roadmaps, I think would be, best practice here. The third one, the third point I've got here, so DevOps as a business capability. I mean, typically an enterprise architecture team has got some kind of model that demonstrates that they've got a business capability, a handle on the overall business capability, a holistic picture of the company and how it works. Well, for the reasons that I've said in the previous slides, development and operations capabilities are becoming more and more mission critical. And that means they should be part of the business capability model, because if those are part of the business capability model, they're getting the right recognition and attention in the sense that they form a tangible part of the overall success and delivery of the company. So I think that DevOps and the tools, the processes, the organization, and the overall capabilities should be part of the enterprise-wide business capability model. And not just, to say it's in there and to get that recognition, but actually because there's a benefit for the DevOps team as well. And the benefit, the way I see it, is that when you're intimately involved with understanding and able to interpret and see where the business capability model is developing, you've got an insight into what's coming next. You've got an insight into what's coming next in terms of the capabilities that are emerging, the capabilities that are differentiating, the capabilities that are going to have technology investment around them. And these are all the areas where, the radar to see what's coming for the DevOps team in terms of the importance of new digital capabilities, new developments, I think is essential. So make it part of your business capability model, like it is, for example, with customer requests, and making sure that it's like the billing and of course the payments part. So it's just as important as any of those other capabilities. So I think, if you can do that, you've got an offering, you've got a foot in the door, and you can become a player in the DevOps team when they know that you can bring some value to what they're doing. So how can we step it up from there? Here's 7 ideas for once you're in the team, once you're inside the team and delivering some value to the DevOps to the DevOps community. Here's a few other ideas. The first one is really taking a look for yourself. Go and actually explore, get involved, get to know some of the Scrum Masters, get to understand where some of their bottlenecks are. So go and do a Gemba, I think is a phrase that Japanese phrase, probably I think out of Toyota, is that opportunity to go and have a physical look round and a walk round and understand the problems for yourself. So that's the first suggestion. Secondly, I think there's very much the role that EA can play here is joining the dots. And number 2 refers to analyzing a first of a kind. If one of the teams, one of the digital product teams or platform teams has a brilliant idea, has a choice of a new tool, for example, for events management, don't be shy about encouraging them to be the first of a kind. And if that work is good and endorsed by other platforms and other digital product owners, then encourage that further and promote that good work so that you end up with more consistency between the different digital teams, digital product teams. Thirdly, I'd say move away from this term governance. I think with we're in a different regime now in terms of how software is engineered, how it's developed, and it's much more continuous. It's much more about providing autonomy for the development teams to get on with things. It's much more agile, but you still need a degree of alignment to make sure that that touch point with strategy and the overall choices and policies that you've got are still relevant and are still heading in the same direction. So again, encouraging all of the digital teams to thrive in their autonomous teams, but also to have a touch point and a conscience about being aligned. And there's ways of doing it now, which is much more integrated into the development process. And I'm thinking much more here about the engineering side of it. So whether you're on Azure or Google Cloud as your hosting platform and partnership, there's ways of just making sure that you've got beacons that are kind of checked off from a security point of view, from a configuration point of view, from a load balancing point of view. So get that kind of automated feel to the governance cycle, so that it becomes an opportunity, it becomes the responsibility of the digital development teams themselves to make sure that they're aligned with those red flag items. So it becomes much more about self-assurance than it does about governance. The fourth idea is really about offering your service as an objective, an independent point of view. When things do go wrong, and sometimes the teams who are involved with those incidents, there's an emotional baggage that comes with it, and and a fatigue element that comes with it as well. So EA could also offer to be the adjudicator, the facilitator, and the convener in a post-mortem if an incident has arisen and needs to be investigated from a technology point of view. So offer your services there. The fifth one builds on the idea of again being objective and a good facilitator and convener. Is there are ways of actually just bringing the teams together on an occasional basis to take a step back and take stock of how they've progressed in terms of the maturity of their product and their platform. And if there's a set of digital business principles that you operate within your company, use that as a kind of way of just assessing how much progress has been made. If the principles are being adhered to in 80-90%, that's a good place to be, and an inspiration to do even more. If you're feeling that the capabilities in certain areas from a digital technology point of view, I'll give an example in terms of integration technologies, or how much reusable components are coming out of a product, then if the maturity of that or the assessment of that is much lower, it's 30-40%, then there's always room for improvement. Number 6 is about making sure that you act as a coach, so for example, educating some of the engineering teams. There's often a decent turnover in the engineering teams, as the competition for talent is very fierce right now. So you've constantly got the churn of people and new people coming into the organization. I think from an enterprise architecture point of view, there's a knowledge inherent within the EA team, for example, about the business capability model. So try and educate the teams, and believe me, you'll learn as much from them as they learn from you as well. So that becomes a two-way traffic, and again, a point of collaboration. And the final one I've got for you, the final example is one speaking from experience on using this this technique, the TIME technique, and these 4 letters, TIME, stand for tolerate, invest, migrate, and eliminate. And it's a way of categorizing the applications in your portfolio. And so, for example, if you've got on your business index, you've got a high rating for the importance of an application, and on the technology index, you've got a very strong rating and a strong product from a technology point of view, then that's going to fall into the invest category. And invest means, do more with it, take advantage, roll it out further, build your skills around that piece of technology. So that's the invest one. The opposite end of the scale is eliminate, where it's a low business significance for the application and the technology is somewhat weak or out of date. That's something that you would eliminate. And tolerate and migrate are kind of part way between them. Now, why is that important in terms of DevOps? Well, there isn't much point in going after applications and putting them through a DevOps cultural change in terms of their development processes, in terms of their release processes, if they're earmarked in the applications catalog to be eliminated, right? It's just a waste of the DevOps team's time. It would be much better to focus time and attention on the top right quadrant, the invest area, and to a certain extent the tolerate as well, because those solutions are going to be around for a little while. Those are the areas really for the DevOps team to spend as much time as possible, and if they had to prioritize, those would be the areas to go after. And why is it important for cloud migrations? Well, a lot of companies are still moving a lot of their old legacy applications into the cloud. They're going through these migration strategies. But of course, timing is everything. So again, there's no point in moving an application that's earmarked to be eliminated 3 months after you've moved it. And I think the DevOps teams should also pay attention to those time categories. So in summary here, there's a whole bunch of things that can be done, and this is by no means an exhaustive list of items, but contribute more to the DevOps team, I think, is the message once you're in that team. And look, there's plenty of examples around where people have done this. You're not alone. People have done this already. I think the security community is one step ahead of EA in a lot of organizations, or can be. And I've seen some very successful exercises where the security element is moved from being a kind of blocker or an anti-pattern to agile and DevOps into being much more of an active and contributor and a player in the team, getting engaged much earlier, helping to refine backlogs, and making InfoSec tasks lists and acceptance criteria an integral part of the development process. So moving away from being the team that says no to being the team that suggests what the best next step is to guarantee the security credentials of a new development. I think that could be an inspirational point for EAs if you're keeping pace with, or if you're ahead of the security team in getting engaged with DevOps, then bring them with you. If you're behind, then I think if you're behind them, then see how they've done it and take some lessons from how they've gone about doing it. So look, so just drawing to a close. In summary, I think I can't think, Ben, you may be able to help me, or one of the listeners may be able to help me, but I need some inspiration. I couldn't work out how to put EA into the DevSecOps phrase, but I think it's got to be. We've got to find a place for it, because I think if EA teams are a player in DevOps, if you recognize that you're a player, I think you push that door open and get in there, make it clear what your service offering is, and then once you're in there, help to add value and continuously evolve that offering. So make sure you're a player and make sure you're helping that DevOps team reach gold medal status like the Italian Olympic 4x100 team that are photographed here. Ben, I'm going to hand back to you just to round us out.
Super, many thanks. That was a really interesting presentation there, Will. So if what Will was saying, I'm sure it has resonated with you, and you'd like to find out a little bit more, we've got an ebook. You can scan the QR code there on the screen. Particularly in there, you can find out a little bit more about sort of how you can support the time evaluations, things like that, and maybe put some of the stuff that Will's been talking about, into practice with HopX. So yeah, once again, thanks to Will, thanks to everyone for listening, and yeah, hope to see you again with some of our videos soon. Thank you.
Thank you.